Donald spent 33 years at the same company. He never missed a deadline, never took more than 2 weeks off in a row, and never touched his investment accounts ahead of schedule. He drove modestly, skipped the expensive vacations, and told himself the same thing every January. Not yet. The plan was airtight. Hit 65 with $2.1 million. Then live. Learn to sail. Finally travel. Finally start. He made it to 62 with a heart attack instead. He survived, but his cardiologist was clear. International travel was now risky, and physically demanding activities like sailing were off the table. When retirement finally arrived at 65, the $2.1 million was there, exactly as planned. The body that was supposed to spend it well was not. He could take gentle walks. He can watch television. He can sit on a beach, but he cannot swim in the ocean. The number he built his entire adult life around is sitting in an account, largely useless because the version of him that could have actually used it never made it to the finish line. He saved everything for a future that moved the moment he crossed into it. My name is Kevin, and I have spent an embarrassing amount of time thinking about why we keep making this trade. Our best years for a future that is not guaranteed to look anything like what we imagined. If you're currently in grind now, live later mode, if retirement feels like the finish line where real life finally begins, stick with me, hit subscribe, and tap the like button if what I'm about to say makes you rethink anything. Because I'm not here to tell you to stop saving. I'm not here to tell you to blow your 401k on a trip to Bali. What I am here to tell you is that the traditional model, work 40 years straight, retire at 65, then live, is optimizing for completely the wrong thing. You're chasing maximum wealth at the end point when you should be chasing maximum energy usage across the entire arc of your life. I call it the mini retirement strategy. It is about taking intentional breaks while your body can still do the things that require a body. Here is the belief that is quietly costing you your best years. Defer everything, save everything, retire at 65, and then finally live. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. Every financial planner reinforces it. Every retirement calculator is built around it. Every employer implicitly rewards it. The entire system is structured around this idea that you sacrifice your prime decades and receive freedom in your 60s. But that idea rests on an assumption that almost never holds up, that you will arrive at 65 healthy, energetic, and physically capable of doing everything you spent 40 years planning to do. The data does not support that assumption. A 2023 study from the National Institute on Aging found that physical capability, strength, endurance, mobility peaks in the late 20s and declines steadily after 35. By the time you reach 65, the average person has lost roughly 30% of their muscle mass and around 40% of their aerobic capacity compared to their peak. You are not the same person at 65 that you were at 38. You cannot do the same things. The window for certain experiences does not stay open indefinitely waiting for you to finish saving. And it gets darker. According to the CDC, 60% of Americans over 65 are living with at least one chronic health condition that limits physical activity. That means your odds of crossing into traditional retirement with a fully functional body capable of doing everything you planned are worse than a coin flip. You are literally gambling your prime years on a future that, statistically, is more likely to disappoint you than deliver what you envisioned. Donald wanted to sail. At 35, he could have learned to sail, spent weekends on the water, maybe even done a transatlantic crossing. At 65, with a damaged heart, he cannot. The dream did not shrink. His body did. And the system told him he was doing everything right the entire time. Now let's actually run the numbers, because the math of mini retirements is not as reckless as your financial advisor's face will suggest when you bring it up. Donald made an average of $78,000 per year across his career. If he had taken a 6-month sabbatical every 5 years starting at 30, he would have taken 6 sabbaticals before reaching 65. 3 years total of unpaid time off spread across 3 decades. During those 3 years, he earned nothing, meaning he gave up roughly $234,000 in gross income. But here is what he gained. He would have traveled in his 30s when his body could hike mountains. He would have learned to sail in his 40s when his cardiovascular system could handle the physical demands. He would have taken risks and had adventures during the years when his energy was highest and his responsibilities were still flexible enough to allow it. And here is the part that almost nobody stops to think about. Taking 3 years off does not cost you 3 years of retirement savings. Not really. Compound interest does its heaviest lifting at the end of the savings timeline, not the beginning. Those final years of contributions are the most powerful ones. If Donald had contributed to his 401k for 30 years instead of 33, he would have arrived at 65 with approximately $1.8 million instead of $2.1 million. He would have traded $300,000 in final balance for 36 months of living fully during the years when his body could actually participate in life. Is $300,000 worth 3 years of your 30s and 40s? 3 years of experiences that are physically impossible to replicate at 65? I do not think it is. And I think if you sit quietly with that question, you do not think so either. Donald has $2.1 million and a broken body. A version of Donald who took sabbaticals would have $1.8 million and 36 months of memories from when his body could actually do the things he spent his whole life dreaming about. Which version is actually richer? The spreadsheet says the first. Life says the second. Here is where it gets uncomfortable, because the system is not accidentally pushing you toward the defer everything model. It is doing it deliberately, and it is doing it because the defer everything model benefits everyone except you. Your employer benefits because you never disappear for 6 months. You're always available, always productive, always generating value for the organization. Financial institutions benefit because you are depositing money into accounts they manage for 4 straight decades, and they collect fees on every dollar for every year it sits there. The longer you save and the more you accumulate, the more they make. No financial institution has a business incentive to tell you to pull $18,000 out of your savings at age 34 and spend 6 months sailing in the Mediterranean. That behavior does not generate fees. It does not fit the model. But the model is failing people at an enormous scale. A 2022 survey from the Employee Benefit Research Institute found that 41% of retirees retired earlier than they planned because of health problems or disability. Nearly half of people do not even make it to their intended retirement date in the physical condition they expected. They save for a future that did not arrive as advertised. Donald is not a cautionary edge case. He is close to the median outcome, and the system smiled and told him he was being responsible the whole time. I already know what some of you are thinking. Kevin, not everyone can afford to take 6 months off every 5 years. That's something people with money do. And I hear that. But I want to push back on something embedded in that objection. You cannot afford it with your current spending structure. That does not mean you cannot afford it at all. It means you have not yet reorganized your financial life around making it possible. The mini retirement strategy is not about spending more than you currently spend. It is about spending differently. It is about being intentional enough about your present and your future that you carve out space for both, not just the retirement account at the end. Let's look at the actual numbers. If you earn $78,000 per year and you're saving 20% for retirement, you are putting away $15,600 annually. If you bump that to 25%, an extra 5%, which is roughly $3,250 per year, you accumulate over $19,000 in added savings over 6 years. That is your sabbatical fund. You do not stop contributing to your 401k. You do not raid your retirement accounts. You build a separate pool, slowly and deliberately, that exists specifically for the purpose of buying back a slice of your life while you still have the energy to spend it. And a 6-month sabbatical does not have to be expensive. If you're strategic about where you go, Southeast Asia, Central America, Eastern Europe, you can live well and meaningfully on $15,000 to $20,000 for 6 months. You are not staying in resorts. You are renting a small apartment, cooking most of your meals, moving slowly, living locally. The goal is not luxury. The goal is time. The goal is using your energy while it exists. Donald could have done this. He chose not to because the system told him it was irresponsible. This brings me to the most important distinction in this entire conversation, and I want you to really sit with it. Money is renewable. Energy is not. If you spend money, you can earn more of it. You can save more, invest it, watch it compound. Money responds to effort and time and strategy. Energy does not work that way. You have a finite reserve, and it decreases with age regardless of what you do or how carefully you live. Every year you delay an experience that requires physical capability is a year that experience becomes harder or simply stops being accessible altogether. Donald wanted to sail at 35. Learning would have taken him about 3 months and some money for lessons. At 65, with a damaged heart, it is impossible at any price. No amount of money in any account recreates the version of him that could have stood on that deck and handled those lines. The experience is gone. Permanently. Irrevocably. You're making that same trade every time you tell yourself later. The month learning to surf in Costa Rica. The year backpacking through Southeast Asia. The transatlantic crossing Donald always dreamed about. These are not money-dependent experiences. They are energy-dependent experiences. They require a working body more than they require a full bank account. And your working body is not waiting for you to get your finances sorted. It is declining on its own schedule, on its own timeline, without your permission. You can save money. You cannot save energy. The physical capacity you do not use in your 30s does not accumulate in some account and become available in your 60s. It disappears, and no number in a retirement account brings it back. So here is what the actual path forward looks like if you want to stop betting your best years on a future that the statistics suggest is unlikely to arrive fully intact. Step 1. Calculate what a 6-month mini retirement actually costs you. If you can live on $3,000 a month, which is entirely achievable if you are strategic about location, you need $18,000. That is your number. Save $3,000 extra per year for 6 years, and you have it. Keep your retirement contributions running in parallel. This is additional, not instead. Step 2. Decide specifically what you are saving for right now before you have the money. Now I'd like to travel someday. Something concrete. In 6 years, I am spending 6 months hiking the Appalachian Trail, or in 5 years, I am renting an apartment in Mexico and finally becoming fluent in Spanish. The specificity is what makes it real. Vague intentions evaporate. Concrete plans with timelines become calendars. Step 3. Figure out the employment piece honestly. Some employers have formal sabbatical programs. Most do not. If yours does not, you need to decide whether you are willing to negotiate unpaid leave or whether you are willing to leave and find a new job afterward. That is the part that scares people most, and I understand why. But here is what I have seen repeatedly. People who frame a sabbatical correctly in interviews, who say I took 6 months to travel and recharge, and I came back more energized than I've been in years, are not red flags to good employers. They're interesting people who take their lives seriously. The right organization will respect it. Step 4, and this one matters more than people expect. Use your sabbatical to do things that are physically demanding, not things that are comfortable. Do not spend 6 months on a cruise ship sitting in a deck chair. What you are after is energy expenditure, experiences that require your body to show up fully. Hike, bike, climb, sail, surf. Use your physical capacity as the resource it is, because it is the most irreplaceable resource you will ever have. Right now, you probably feel like the responsible path is to save everything, take nothing, and arrive at 65 with the maximum possible number in the account. That feeling is understandable. The whole culture reinforces it. Every authority figure you have ever trusted has pointed in that direction. But here is what is actually happening when you follow that path without question. You are placing a 40-year bet that a future version of yourself, older, slower, more fragile, statistically likely to have at least one chronic health condition, will be physically capable of doing everything you kept postponing. You are wagering your 30s, your 40s, your 50s on odds that are, by the CDC's own data, worse than a coin flip. Donald worked 33 years without taking more than 2 consecutive weeks off. He maxed his 401k every single year. He lived modestly, delayed the vacations, delayed the hobbies, delayed the life. He arrived at the finish line with $2.1 million and a heart that could not sail. He did not win. He lost something that no account balance can replace: the decades when his body was actually capable of the life he wanted to live. The money is there. The energy is gone. And the money, as it turns out, cannot do much about that. Donald cannot get his 30s back. You still have yours. If this made you reconsider waiting until 65, hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.